The credit card statement sat open on the kitchen table, an unsettling truth etched in numbers. $17,000. My name is Martha Langston. I'm 62 years old, a retired elementary school teacher, and a widow. My husband, Gerald, passed away from pancreatic cancer 4 years ago. Since then, I've lived alone in the house we bought in our 30s, clinging to a semblance of normalcy in a world that feels increasingly alien. 3 years ago, I added my daughter, Haley, to my credit card for emergencies. I told myself, wanting her to feel secure while she built her life. Haley's always been dramatic, always running late, always turning minor problems into full-blown crises. I thought I was helping. I thought I was being a good mother. Now the statement sat before me, page after page detailing wedding charges, florists' catering deposits, a venue I had never even heard of. Enchanted Valley Floral, $3,200. Silvercrest Banquet Hall, $8,500. Maison Rouge Catering, $4,800. I hadn't been consulted. I hadn't been told. I was just being billed. Haley was getting married in 6 weeks, and apparently, I was paying for it. I ran my fingers over the numbers, each one stinging like a paper cut. At first, I wasn't angry, just stunned. It was like the feeling you get when you realize the source of a noise is inside your own house. This wasn't identity theft. This was something worse. It was entitlement disguised as love. And as I sat there, the morning sunlight slanting through the blinds, warming the kitchen aisle Gerald had installed for our 20th anniversary, I realized something profoundly painful. Love in my family came with a price tag, and I had been covering it for far too long. Before I could fully absorb the shock, I heard the front door slam. "Mom, I need to borrow your car tonight," came Travis's voice from the hallway. My son Travis, 34 and recently divorced, had moved back in 6 months ago, just temporarily, he'd said. I should have known better. Travis had a way of making temporary situations permanent. Since moving in, he hadn't contributed a dime to the bills, let alone lifted a finger around the house. He didn't even bother to come into the kitchen. He just shouted his requests as if I were his building manager. "We're going to look at that apartment in Oakridge," he added. "Tasha's meeting me there." Tasha, the yoga instructor girlfriend, who spent more time in my living room than I did. She meditated in the mornings, leaving incense and crystals scattered everywhere. I'd once mentioned that the smoke gave me headaches, but Travis told me I was being negative. "Unwelcoming," he said. "You need to open yourself up, Mom." I called him into the kitchen, keeping my voice steady. "Travis, can you come here, please?" He shuffled in, already irritated, phone in hand, wearing the jeans I had bought him last Christmas. "What's up?" "I'm in a hurry." I slid the credit card statement toward him. "Did you know about this?" He barely glanced at it, then shrugged. "Yeah, Haley mentioned it." "Look, Mom, it's just money. You've got a house, a pension, you're fine." That was the moment. The exact moment I realized my children no longer saw me as a person. To them, I was just a safety net with a credit limit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those numbers, $3,000 for flowers, $8,000 for a venue, almost $5,000 for food. I thought of Gerald. He would have been furious, not just at the spending, but at the audacity. Haley's text came just before midnight. "Hey Mom, can you handle the final catering deposit for next month? It's only like $2,000. Gerald's life insurance should cover it, right? You're the best." I stared at the message for a long time. Then, for the first time in 34 years of motherhood, I did something I'd never done before. I deleted it. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. I finally understood that silence wasn't kindness. Silence was permission. I sat in Gerald's old recliner, the one he used to nap in with a book open on his chest. The house creaked around me in the quiet way it always did. I thought of how hard we had worked to build a stable life, one meant to carry me safely into old age. Instead, I was watching it bleed dry, one ungrateful request at a time. No more. By morning, I had a list, a real list. First, I called the credit card company to report the unauthorized charges, freeze the account, and begin the dispute process. Second, I called the bank to revoke Travis's access to my checking and savings accounts and cancel the debit card he'd been using like an allowance. Third, I called my lawyer, Janet Morrison, the same woman who had helped me settle Gerald's affairs. I needed to revise my will. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protection. Because if my children only saw me as useful when I was giving, then it was time they learned what happened when I finally stopped. The love I had offered freely for decades had been mistaken for obligation. That misunderstanding ended today. By 9 a.m., I had made all the calls. The credit card was frozen. The bank confirmed that Travis's debit card would stop working by noon. Janet scheduled an appointment at 4 p.m. to begin the will revision process. And I felt lighter than I had in years. That peace lasted until 10:37 a.m., when my phone rang. Haley. I let it go to voicemail. The phone rang again, then again and again. On the fourth ring, I finally picked up. Mom, thank God. There's a problem with your card. The florist called, said the payment didn't go through. I know, I replied calmly. The card's been frozen. A long pause. What? Why? Because I didn't authorize $17,000 in wedding charges. Another pause. Then I heard that voice I knew too well. The soft, coaxing tone she used when she'd wrecked the car or failed a test. Mom, please. We can fix this. Just call them and explain. It's all a mistake. It's not a mistake, I replied. You used my card without asking. You said I could use it for emergencies. A wedding is not an emergency, Haley. But the vendors will lose everything if we don't pay. You're really going to ruin your only daughter's wedding. That guilt-soaked plea. Don't you love me enough to fix this? I want you to have a beautiful wedding, I said. But I want you to pay for it yourself, like adults do. She went silent, and I could hear her breathing, her frustration simmering as she tried to twist things in her favor. You're being unreasonable. Possibly, I answered, but I'm also being clear. And I hung up. By the time I got home with the new locks from the hardware store, Travis's car was already parked in the driveway. I walked in to find Tasha making a smoothie in my kitchen, fruit from my fridge scattered across the counter, crystals spread out on my dining table. Travis glanced up from his phone. Hey, something's wrong with my debit card. I placed my purse on the counter. No, Travis, it's working just as it should. He blinked. What's going on? I closed your access to my bank accounts, I said calmly. And I'm aware of your sister's situation. Tasha laughed nervously. Martha, you scared us. We thought maybe you had a stroke or something. No, I said, walking toward the door with the new locks in hand. I'm just waking up, that's all. By mid-afternoon, the new locks were installed. The old keys dropped into a mason jar, which I tucked deep into a kitchen drawer. It felt symbolic, like sealing away an old version of myself. At 4 p.m., I sat in Janet Morrison's leather-scented office, laying everything out. The unauthorized charges, the years of financial dependency, the emotional manipulation. Janet listened attentively, only occasionally jotting down notes. This could be considered elder financial abuse, she said. I don't want to press charges, I told her. I just want them to understand the rules have changed. Then we'll make that clear in your will, she said. By dinner time, the house was quiet, but not the hollow, grief-stricken quiet I had grown accustomed to since Gerald passed. This silence felt different, intentional, clean. As I opened a bottle of wine and reheated some leftover soup, there was a knock at the back door. It was Karen Delaney, the woman from 2 houses down. She was holding a casserole dish and gave me a tentative smile. I'm Karen Delaney. I live in the White House with the red shutters. I hope I'm not intruding, but I heard some shouting earlier, then saw a car speed off. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. For a moment, I considered lying politely, brushing it off. But then I surprised myself. Actually, I said, I'm not okay, but I'm working on it. She lifted the casserole dish. I made too much lasagna, and eating alone gets old. I smiled. Come in, I said. I just opened a bottle. We ate together at the kitchen table, Gerald's table, talking about Rosa's recipes and adult children who forget that mothers are people too. I told her everything, and she listened the way a true friend does, not offering advice, just presence. When she left, she squeezed my hand and said, Next time you're coming to my porch. For the first time in years, I believe there might actually be a next time worth looking forward to. The siege resumed the next morning. I opened the blinds to find Haley's car parked in my driveway. She was sitting on the porch steps, her makeup smudged, hair disheveled, clutching a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold. I took my time getting dressed, made toast, let the kettle whistle. Finally, at 8:30, I opened the door. "Mom," she croaked. "I've been here since 5. You look exhausted," I said, stepping onto the porch. "I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. The wedding's ruined, and I don't understand why you're doing this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," I said softly. "I'm just no longer doing things for you." She blinked. "The venue canceled yesterday when the payment didn't go through." I said nothing. Haley sat beside me on the bench that Gerald had built. She was still my daughter, and I still loved her, but something had shifted. She no longer looked like a child. She looked like a woman facing the consequences of her actions. "I know I messed up," she murmured. "I shouldn't have used your card. I was just overwhelmed." "Overwhelmed," I repeated. "So overwhelmed that you forgot to invite me to your engagement dinner?" "That wasn't me," she said quickly. "That was David's family. It was small. Just immediate family." "I'm your mother, Haley. Your immediate family." She looked away. "When did I become the person it was okay to leave out?" I asked. "When did you decide I was only good for paying bills, not for being present?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought you wouldn't want to come." "That's not the truth," I said. "That's what you tell yourself so you don't have to feel guilty." She covered her face with her hands. "Fine. I messed up. I was selfish. I used you, but I'm here now. I'm apologizing. Doesn't that mean something?" "It depends," I said. "Are you sorry for what you did, or just sorry that it didn't work?" She dropped her hands, mouth opening to respond, but no words came. "I love you," I continued. "But love doesn't mean never setting boundaries, and forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened." "So what?" she asked. "You're just cutting me off? You're going to let me crash and burn?" "No," I said gently. "I'm going to let you learn how to stand up." There was a long silence. "What if I can't?" she asked, voice trembling. "Then you'll get back up," I replied. "The way I did. The way every woman has to sooner or later." She stood, shaky and uncertain. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this." "That's okay," I said. "I didn't do it for your forgiveness. I did it for mine." She walked down the steps without saying goodbye, and I let her go. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, no one knocking on my door asking for keys, money, or favors. The silence was so unfamiliar that it almost felt luxurious. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, David knocked on my door. When I opened it, he stood there, a man whose tired appearance mirrored my own. His shirt was wrinkled, and his expression was strained, but there was no anger, only a sense of responsibility. "Hi, Mrs. Langston," he greeted. "I hope this isn't a bad time." "Not at all," I replied, motioning for him to come inside. We sat together on the porch, the soft spring breeze gently stirring the rose bushes Gerald had once cared for. Bushes I had just begun tending again. David reached into his jacket and handed me an envelope. "This is for you," he said. Inside, I found a cashier's check for $8,500. "I can't accept this," I said immediately. "You can," he insisted. "Half of those wedding costs were mine too, the venue, the catering. Even if I didn't know where the money came from, I still benefited, and I want to make it right." I studied his face. It was sincere, regretful, full of integrity, no pretense. "Did Haley send you?" I asked. He let out a humorless laugh. "She doesn't even know I'm here. We haven't spoken since I called off the wedding." "You called it off?" "Yes," he said. "After you froze the card, I started asking the real questions. About money, about your absence from the engagement dinner, about what she told me and what she didn't." He looked down at the check in my hand. "I love her, I truly do. But I realized, I don't know if she's ready to love anyone in the way love requires. Truthfully, honestly, without expecting someone else to carry the weight." I said nothing, simply nodding slowly. "I'm sorry for what she did," he added softly. And for not seeing it sooner. For the first time in years, someone had apologized to me without following up with an expectation. No strings, just dignity. I was grateful for it. Later that evening, as the sun sank behind the rooftops, Haley's car pulled into the driveway again. This time she wasn't alone. A young woman, probably her college roommate Melissa, if I remembered correctly, climbed out of the passenger seat. They stood at the bottom of my porch steps, awkward and unsure. "Mom," Haley called. "We need to talk." I opened the door but didn't step outside. "Good evening, Haley," I said, nodding to her friend. "Hello. This is Melissa," Haley introduced quickly, as if to rush past introductions. "Look, I know you're upset, but things have gotten out of hand. David's gone, the wedding's off. I'm staying with Melissa. I need to come home." There it was, the assumption that no matter how badly things went, I'd always be the safety net. The backup plan. "No," I said simply. Haley blinked, her eyes wide. "What do you mean no?" "I mean this isn't your home anymore. That door closed when you left my life, but still expected me to fund yours." Melissa, sensing the tension, shifted awkwardly. "Maybe I should wait in the car." "Maybe you should," I replied. The moment her friend left, Haley's shoulders slumped. "You're really doing this?" she asked. "You're going to let your daughter be homeless?" "You're not homeless. You have a job, a degree, options. What you don't have is unlimited access to me anymore." Her face twisted, like I'd slapped her. "What do you want from me? An apology?" "I want understanding," I said. "I want you to realize the difference between saying, 'I'm sorry I used your card,' and understanding how deeply it hurt me that you thought you could. I already apologized. I listed what I did. That's not the same as apologizing for why you did it." She looked down, her eyes focused on the steps. "I don't understand what you want me to say." "That tells me everything I need to know." Her voice rose. "So that's it. You're cutting me off. You're going to die alone just to prove a point." I almost laughed. "That's the difference between us, Haley. You think consequences are punishment. I think they're necessary." She stepped back, her face hardening. "You're not the person I thought you were." "No," I replied. "I'm finally the person I used to be before I let everyone else rewrite me." Without another word, Haley turned and walked down the driveway. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't chase her. I simply went back inside, poured myself a glass of water, and sat in Gerald's chair. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't lonely. It was earned. 3 weeks later, I was in the garden, my hands buried in the soil, when Karen's voice floated over the fence. "You've got new blooms coming in," she called. "You've been busy." "I guess I have," I replied, brushing dirt from my hands. "Busy, that's one way to put it." In 3 weeks, I'd revised my will, cleared out old accounts, and built a life that finally felt like mine. The credit card company had ruled in my favor. $17,000 reversed. No charges were filed against Haley, but she no longer had access to my accounts. Travis had stopped texting after I ignored his last passive-aggressive meme. David's check was safely deposited into a new account, one with just my name on it. Most importantly, the house wasn't empty. It wasn't quiet in a sorrowful way. It was peaceful. Karen and I started having coffee every morning, either on my porch or hers. We talked about books, birds, and why it took us so long to stop being afraid of our own boundaries. That morning, Karen brought a flyer from the library. "They're looking for literacy volunteers," she said. "I thought of you, so I signed you up." It felt good to be wanted again, but this time for my mind, for my time, not my money. That afternoon, I sat by the window in the living room, Gerald's window, where the sunlight streamed in, and painted the hardwood floor. I looked out at the roses and thought about him. What he would have said, what he would have done. I think he'd be proud, not just of the boundaries I set, but of the peace I allowed myself to have. My phone buzzed with a text from Karen. "A new widow from the library wants to join us for coffee tomorrow. I think you'll like her." I replied, "Can't wait." Then I set the phone down, picked up my book, and let the light embrace me like a blessing. If this story touched you, share it. If it reminded you of your own strength, comment. If you're building your own peace, like and subscribe. You matter, not for what you give, but for who you are. Don't forget that.